His hand shot out, stopping mine just inches from his arm. "No," he whispered. The word was colder than ice, slicing through the silence in our bedroom. My fingers froze midair, the rejection so visceral it felt like a slap. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I no longer had that right. That was 6 months ago, and he hasn't let me touch him since. No hugs, no brush of fingers, not even an accidental graze as we pass each other in the hallway. I destroyed our 15-year marriage with an unforgivable mistake, and now I live in the ruins. I'm a ghost haunting my own house, tormenting the man I love. But that's not the strangest part. The part that keeps me up at night, staring at the ceiling, is this. He's the one who refuses to sign the divorce papers. The man who despises me is the same man who won't let me go. To understand how we ended up in this silent hell, you need to understand the paradise we once had. Our life wasn't a Hollywood movie. It was something real, something built. It was the smell of fresh coffee that Mark made for me every morning, even on the days he had to leave before sunrise. I can still feel the warmth of that mug in my hands, hear the sound of our kids laughing in the kitchen as they got ready for school, see the way the morning light poured through the living room window, illuminating the floating dust particles in the air. It was a life of small, perfect moments. Mark is a good man. A solid, dependable man. He was my rock. He worked hard at his construction company, building homes for other families while we built our own. We had 2 wonderful kids, a house in a quiet Maple Creek neighborhood, and a future that felt as solid as the foundations he laid. But stability over time can start to feel predictable. Comfort can turn into complacency. I loved him, I never doubted that. But I felt invisible. The routine wrapped around us like a warm blanket, but one that also smothered. I was the mom, the wife, the household manager. Somewhere along the way, I felt like I'd lost Sarah. And that's when I made my mistake. It wasn't planned. It was a series of small compromises, boundaries I allowed to be crossed. It started with a coworker, David. He was charming, funny, and most importantly, he saw me. He laughed at my jokes. He asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. I told myself it was just a friendship, an innocent crush, an escape. I was playing with fire, and I was about to burn my entire world to the ground. The first time it happened was after a happy hour with the office crew. The drinks, the laughter, the feeling of being wanted again, it was intoxicating. I remember the scent of his cologne, the rough texture of his coat under my fingers, the sound of rain hitting the roof of the car. In that moment, I didn't think about Mark. I didn't think about my kids. I thought only of myself. And that selfishness cost me everything. It lasted 3 months. 3 months of lies, deleted text messages, flimsy excuses for coming home late. Every lie was like another stone in the wall between me and Mark. I was living a double life, and the stress of it was eating me alive. A part of me, a desperate and masochistic part, wanted to get caught. I couldn't carry the weight anymore. And then it wasn't a private investigator or a well-meaning friend. It was Mark himself. It was a Tuesday night. I had just gotten home, the faint scent of David's cologne still lingering in my hair. Mark was sitting in the armchair in the living room, the room dark except for the cold glow of his phone screen in his hand. My phone. The silence in the room was deafening. I could hear my own pulse, an erratic drumbeat against my ribs. He didn't have to say anything. I saw it in his eyes. He knew. "Mark," my voice came out as a hoarse whisper. He looked up from the phone. There was no rage in his eyes. No fury. There was something far worse. Complete emptiness. It was like looking at a stranger. "Who is he, Sarah?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. And there, under the cold light of the phone screen, my carefully built world crumbled. I confessed everything. The words spilled out of me in a torrent of shame and guilt. I cried. I begged. I told him it was a mistake, that I loved him, that we could fix this. He listened in silence, his face an impassive mask. When I finished, he sat there for what felt like an eternity. Then he stood, walked to our bedroom, and closed the door. I slept on the couch that night, and the next night, and every night since. In the early days, I tried everything. I apologized until I had no voice left. I left notes on his pillow. I tried to start conversations about us. Every attempt was met with either a wall of silence or monosyllabic replies. He was there physically, but his soul, the Mark I knew, was gone. He became a polite, distant roommate. We coordinated the kids' schedules and talked about the bills, but it was all transactional. The intimacy, the connection, it was all gone. The physical rejection is the hardest part. It's a brutal, constant reminder of what I've done. Once, I tried to place my hand on his shoulder while he was doing the dishes, a gesture I'd done 1,000 times before. He flinched as though I'd electrocuted him. His muscles stiffened under my hand, and he slowly pulled away without a word. That small movement spoke louder than any shouted curse. It screamed, "You disgust me." That's when I suggested marriage counseling. "We need help, Mark. We can't go on like this." He finally looked at me, and I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. "There is no we, Sarah," he said. "You destroyed we. And no, I won't sit in some room with a stranger and listen to them tell me to forgive you." It was a knife to the heart. But he was right. How could I ask for forgiveness when the damage was so profound? My friend Amy has been my only support system, but even she is running out of patience. We were having coffee last week, and I was venting about how hard it was to live like this. "Sarah, I love you, but you need to face reality," she said, stirring her coffee with more force than necessary. "Your marriage is over. Why don't you just file for divorce and move on? This is torture for both of you." "I know," I whispered, staring at my reflection in my cup. "But I keep hoping for a miracle, I guess." "There won't be a miracle," she said, her voice softer now. "You broke his trust. That's something some men just can't get past. Give him what he wants. Let him go." And so I did. With a heavy heart, I hired a lawyer and had the divorce papers served to him. I hoped for relief on his part. Maybe even a nod of gratitude for finally ending the misery. Instead, what happened next stunned me. He refused to sign. My lawyer called, her voice thick with confusion. "Sarah, your husband is contesting," she said. "He's not disputing the terms, the assets, or the custody. He's just dragging it out, asking for extensions, delaying every document, not responding to communications. He's fighting the divorce." I couldn't process it. "But why?" "He barely speaks to me. He won't let me touch him. He hates me." "I don't know," the lawyer said. "But he's making this as difficult as possible." That's when a horrifying thought struck me. Maybe this wasn't about saving the marriage. Maybe this was about revenge. Life at home became even more tense. The silence now was heavy with this new and strange dynamic. He wanted me out of his life, yet he refused to cut the legal tie between us. It was a contradiction that was driving me insane. I had to confront him. I waited until the kids were asleep and found him in the living room, reading a book. The only light came from a small lamp beside his chair, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The air was thick with unspoken words. "Mark, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling slightly. He didn't look up from the book. "About what?" "The divorce." "Why are you fighting it? I thought this is what you wanted." He finally closed the book, the sound echoing in the quiet room. He looked at me, and for the first time in months, his eyes weren't empty. They were filled with something cold and hard, pain. "You think it's that easy?" he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You think you can just burn our life down and then walk away with a signature on a piece of paper?" "No. Of course not. I just want to end the pain for you." He let out a short, bitter laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Pain? You don't know anything about pain. You had your exciting experience. You had your affair. Now you want to wipe the slate clean and start fresh." He stood and walked toward me. I stepped back instinctively. "No," he said, stopping a few feet away. "You don't get an easy fresh start. You're going to stay. You're going to wake up in this house every morning and see what you destroyed. You're going to look at our kids and know that you broke their family. And you're going to see me every day and remember the man whose trust you shattered." The air left my lungs. Amy was wrong. My lawyer was wrong. I was wrong. He wasn't holding on to me. He was keeping me trapped in the prison I built for myself. The love wasn't gone. It had soured and turned into something dark and vengeful. He didn't want to forgive me. He wanted to punish me. And his weapon was the very marriage I had desecrated. In that moment, I understood. The physical rejection, the silence, the refusal to sign the papers, it was all part of the same sentence. My penance was to live, day after day, with the visible consequences of my actions. That changed everything for me. The small hope I'd been clinging to, the fantasy that we might somehow find our way back to each other, died in that room. And in its place, something new started to grow. Acceptance. I stopped trying. I stopped apologizing, stopped trying to force a connection. I accepted my role as the ghost in our house. and I began focusing on the only thing I could control, myself. I started going to the gym every morning. The burn in my muscles became my therapy. The clanging of weights, the sweat dripping down my face, it was real. It was something I could feel, something I could overcome. I started running, pushing my body to the limit, letting the physical exhaustion drown out the emotional pain. I started eating healthy, not to lose weight, but to feel like I was nurturing something, even if it was just myself. I threw myself into work, taking on new projects, working late not to avoid home, but to build something new for me. My lawyer assures me that the divorce will eventually go through. The law is on my side. His resistance can only delay the inevitable. It will take time, it will be expensive, but it will end. In the meantime, I live in this limbo. I wake up, take the kids to school, go to work, go to the gym, come home, and coexist with the man who used to be the love of my life and is now my jailer. I'm not sharing this for sympathy. I'm not the victim here. My husband, my kids, my parents, they carry the burden of my mistakes. Mistakes for which I am genuinely, deeply sorry. I made a choice, a series of terrible choices, and now I'm living with them. The divorce will be finalized eventually. I'll be free. But I know I'll never truly be free of the consequences. I'll carry these scars forever. The image of Mark's empty eyes, the feel of his rejection, the heavy silence in our house, they're etched into my soul. I've learned the hard way that trust is like a mirror. Once it's broken, you can try to glue the pieces back together, but you'll never see the same reflection. You'll always see the cracks. I wonder if anyone else has ever gone through something like this. Have you ever been in a situation where the person who was hurt just couldn't let you go? Or maybe you were the one who couldn't sign the papers, stuck between the pain and the memory of what once was? Share your story in the comments below. I need to know I'm not alone in this strange, silent purgatory. I read every single one of them. And tell me, what would you have done if you were in my shoes?